So, how many of you have ever wondered about what the rules are? I hear this a lot. I know it's a question that I ask myself and others a lot, and I hear it a lot from others as well. Just what are the rules? What are the social rules of how to work with other people and what to do? And something that I've realized recently is that generally, when people ask those questions, they've already made a fundamental flaw in their assumptions. So, to give you a hint of the misunderstanding, the inherent misunderstanding as about rules, I used to get really, really annoyed at phrases like, it's the exception that proves the rule. Have you ever heard that phrase? And I thought, what a completely useless, contradictory phrase. If there is an exception, doesn't that disprove the rule? Surely an exception disproves the rule. How could an exception prove the rule? And I knew intellectually that the reason people say that is because the exception exists, there must also exist the norm. So there's an exception and the norm. So it's almost like it's the exception that proves the norm. Now that would have been a lot more helpful because in my mind, rules were applicable 100% of the time. But that's not how rules work. That's not how they've ever worked. So if it's the exception that proves the rule, that means that when someone says a social rule, what they really mean is a social norm that is usually true. And if I am looking for a rule that is true 100% of the time, I will not find it because social rules are never true 100% of the time and they change with different situations. And that's one of the reasons that I wasn't able to identify what the social rules were because I was looking for the wrong thing. I should have been looking for the social norms that are true most of the time and naming them and getting accustomed to them. Instead, I was looking for social rules that were true 100% of the time. And what would happen is I would see an exception to the social norm and I would therefore discount the whole rule as not applying because there was this one exception where it didn't apply, therefore it never applies. So you can probably see how that's problematic, right? Because what that left me with is absolutely nothing. There were no rules that applied 100% of the time, therefore I was left with no rules. It would have been much more helpful if I were looking for social norms that were applied often or most of the time, and I could, if in doubt, follow what is usually done in this situation. And that would have saved a lot of anxiety because I would have had a default position of this is what you're supposed to do in this situation. Not because you have to necessarily, just because if you're not sure, we'll just go with the default and you'll probably be right most of the time. So anyway, the distinction between rules and norms has been very helpful to me, so I hope it's also been helpful to you. If you want to get more involved, like me on Facebook or support me on Patreon, and please leave me a comment so that I know if you found this video useful or not. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon, hopefully. Bye.